Welcome back, everybody. President Trump pushing back reports questioning the fate of two top White House officials. This morning, the president reacted to the Washington Post report describing a strained relationship with White House Chief of Staff John Kelly. The president on Twitter calling the report a, quote, hit job made up of garbage and, quote, untrue. And yesterday, the president defended the controversial spending of EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt, tweeting that Pruitt's security spending was justified because, quote, Pruitt has received death threats because of his bold actions at the EPA. The president also defended tax money Pruitt spent for VIP travel and his condo deal, saying Pruitt's doing a great job. Joining me now to talk all about this, Christina Greer, Associate Professor of Political Science at Fordham University. She's also a fellow at NYU. Evan Siegfried is a Republican strategist, and Julie Roginski, Democratic political strategist. Evan, I'm going to start with you on this. This Washington Post report claiming that there is a strained relationship now between President Trump and Chief of Staff John Kelly. Feasibly, his days could be numbered in the White House after serving as Chief of Staff for 8 months or so. Do you buy it?
Yeah, I don't think that the president and John Kelly have really been all that close. John Kelly came in at August of last year or late July, and he did start to impose some levels of discipline, which did encourage several of us Republicans who had wanted to see a less chaotic White House. But the president has chafed under that. And at the end of the day, the president is the one who decides how his White House is going to be run. And he can ignore the chief of staff. The chief of staff does not technically have authority over any president. And the president says, I'm just going to do the chaos thing. And he's announcing sending troops to the border on his own without any time to plan for it. He's announcing tariffs. If we had announced these tariffs or waited to announce them and actually gone to Wall Street and talked to people at Goldman Sachs and other banks, we would have seen less of a panic on the market and less Americans having their 401ks decimated by the president's impulsivity. And then when we have Scott Pruitt being defended, I'm reminded of about 12 years ago, we had a congressman named Randy Duke Cunningham who lived basically rent-free except for utilities that he paid for on a yacht or houseboat in D.C. owned by a defense subcontractor who was before his subcommittee. Duke Cunningham, he got an 8-year, 4-month federal prison sentence for that type of corruption. Scott Pruitt, he gets to keep his job and get defended by the President of the United States. Something is wrong in the state of Denmark.
Well, what's wrong is that the entire administration is corrupt. I mean, this is a president who's never had a board of directors. He has never answered to anyone. He got this company from daddy. And so he does rule by chaos. And so the thing is, we do know that he also rules like it's an episode of Survivor or The Bachelor. So just because he tweets that says Pruitt is safe or Kelly is safe, we know that, as we've seen in the past 16 months, the next week someone could be fired. And the problem is there's no real continuity, and there's clearly no real strategy of how anything is operating, because the president just wakes up one day and says, I think I want to trans ban in the military.
Just quickly,
and here we are.
That Survivor and The Bachelor are not chaotic, and I don't think we should defame them and bring them. They actually have a structure. They have a structure which they adhere to.
White House. Fantastic.
But look,
we're in good shape here.
He did come here. His qualifications were he played a billionaire on TV. He played a reality show host on TV. He told people that they were fired on TV. And based on that projection, his supporters believe that he's in fact the successful CEO that he portrayed himself to be. There's nothing in the Trump administration's history that actually proves that point. And so when you have somebody in the White House who's based his entire public persona on something that is underlyingly false, you have what happens now, which is a chaotic, as you pointed out, Evan, a chaotic situation with a chaotic chief executive who doesn't want to listen to a military man, General Kelly, impose any kind of discipline on him. Nobody ever has.
But if you're General Kelly at this point, why not just walk away?
Well, because listen,
you have a reputation to uphold.
Well, anyone who would even deal with this particular administration says something about you. And the problem with dealing with Trump is that he brings you down to his level. There is no way that you can sort of try and elevate him. And I think far too many people have joined this administration thinking that they can be the adult in the room or assist in helping this president understand the gravitas and the weight of this office. He refuses. And so he's basically like tar. Anyone who touches the president just gets pulled down into the mire with him. And so many people care and love and respect this nation, and they're finding out slowly but surely this president cares about himself.
Well, I have to disagree slightly with Christina here, because we've seen Jim Mattis go in because he was worried that President Trump could break the world. Jim Mattis has been upstanding. He has not been corrupted, and he's been able to turn and stand up to the president. However,
the commonality that Mattis and Kelly have, they're both military men.
And Trump likes military men.
But Jim Mattis has been much more effective. In terms of why doesn't John Kelly depart now? who would replace him? It would most likely be somebody much worse. And it's sort of this gamble of damned if we do, damned if we don't.
There's been talk that the president doesn't even want a chief of staff.
Or a communications director.
But
when has he had a chief of staff?
But look what's happening to General Mattis now. You're talking about what's happening to Mattis. Mattis is being circled by somebody like a John Bolton. And so as a result, Mattis is probably going to be pushed to the side
tomorrow,
as well.
by the way.
Right, who starts tomorrow, which, by the way, is a former colleague of mine, scares the bejesus out of me because I know exactly what he stands for. And so the reason I say all that is because when you have Donald Trump surrounding himself with people who want to espouse his worldview, Larry Kudlow, who was against tariffs until just today when he's suddenly for them when he works at the White House, Christina's absolutely right. You work for this president, you get brought down to his level. Anything that John Kelly brought to the table, anything he could have brought to the table, has long been gone because this president does not believe in John Kelly or anything that John Kelly could have stood for. So either John Kelly enables the president or John Kelly gets fired or just pushed to the side. There's nothing in it for John Kelly.
I just want to bring this up before we go because we don't have much time left, but Scott Pruitt, do you feel like, and Evan, I'll go to you on this one, do you feel like his days are numbered here? Here's the dirty secret. The president believes that Scott Pruitt is really one of the most effective people in his administration. And it seems as if that is one of the reasons why he hasn't kicked him to the curb quite yet. That's if you believe in the president's energy policy and what he wants to institute in this country. Under that measure, he thinks that Pruitt is effective. Do you think his days are numbered, or do you think he's going to stick by Pruitt?
I think he is hearing from the media, you got to buckle, or he's hearing from liberal media, you got to absolutely get rid of Scott Pruitt. And he's hearing from conservative media, you got to buckle down. This is just a plot to take down your administration and stop making America great, or whatever the heck the line of the day is. And I think he's going to buckle down pretty hard. I think the president also forgets that you could put any Republican who's not going to have these $50 a night condo things, who's not going to abuse his office, who's not going to spend more taxpayer money on things that are absolutely ridiculous, and they could still get the same results. It could have a no-drama EPA administrator who's a Republican without the drama. And I think we're going to still see more drip, drip, drip of what's out there with Scott Pruitt, because this probably is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I have a feeling the Pruitt situation is not going to go away.
Old enough to remember when he wanted to drain the swamp. Remember that?
Okay. My panel's sticking with me. All right, so we know that NBC's Savannah Guthrie actually did an interview with Sheryl Sandberg, and she asked Sheryl Sandberg, do you need to question the leadership at Facebook? Does a change need to come from the top down? Let's take a listen to that, and then we'll talk.
Role at Facebook? Is this the right leadership? You, Mark, have you asked yourselves those hard questions?
I think those are hard questions, and they're the right questions. I can speak for myself first. I serve at the pleasure of Mark and our board, and I will be here as long as they think I'm the right person to run this and to lead our response and to make sure that we can rebuild trust with people all over the world. But at the end of the day, the people we hold responsible are me and Mark. Mark knows that, I know that, and we own that responsibility.
Go ahead, Julie. Give me your reaction to that.
She's got a great PR person telling her what to say. I mean, she's saying all the right things. This is very typical of what Facebook does, right? They apologize every time this comes up. They try to get ahead of the problem, and nothing ever changes because Facebook, after all, is a company that wants to make profit. We are the product. We're not the consumer. And that's something that I think has become very apparent to all of us who are on Facebook, who thought we were in charge of our own data, who were in charge of our own information. In fact, our data has been harvested to make money for others, and in some malicious cases, to hopefully, not hopefully, but realistically do many worse things than just make money for others. The Russians and others have used our data, it seems, to infiltrate our elections and to help infiltrate our elections. So I think the sooner we all realize that Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg, despite her great lean-in books, are not here to make us feel better. They're here to make money for themselves, and that we are, in fact, being used as the product by which they make a profit. Then we could all make decisions as to whether we want to continue on Facebook or we want to stop being the product that makes money for people like Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, it's time for them to clean house. They have to go. And P.S., I'm not a big fan of the lean-in books, and I'm not a Facebook user.
No, but you're saying they have to go. Do you think it would actually happen?
I don't know if it'll happen, but here's the thing. Mark Zuckerberg keeps pulling the, Don Jr. defense, which is, I'm just a young guy in a sweatshirt, and I was in my Harvard dorm room, and I was just trying to make, a Facebook so people could share pictures. That's not what this is. This is a multi-billion-dollar corporation that spreads across... I don't think anybody really buys it anymore. Yeah, well, the thing is, though, he keeps getting in trouble, and he's never gone to Congress, right? I mean, literally, this is not the first time that Facebook has come under scrutiny, even before the 2016 possible meddling in elections. And he keeps getting to play the defense of, this is just a website I started to like link people up. Why has he never testified in front of Congress before? He should have been held accountable years ago for many of the things that were happening. You have 2 billion people who are Facebook users. The fact that he's never been in front of Congress,
that's also implying that 2 billion people are too dumb to know what's going on. Many people know that their digital privacy is being violated, and yet they still use Facebook. I think that there are 2 problems we have to deal with. One, a lot of the digital privacy laws have yet to be written by Congress, and this goes to bigger than Facebook, bigger than social media.
Because there's an unknown. There's a major unknown with regard to digital privacy.
Yes, I was talking to a federal judge recently who said this actually could be a good point in American history, because if we can get Congress to act and enact digital privacy, what are we giving up? And 2, people see these long disclaimers saying, I agree to these terms of service, and nobody reads them. You check yes. And I think we need to really have a conversation about what's going on. What are we putting out there? Because when we're on Instagram posting pictures of our food and our dogs, etc., we're going out and we're telling a great deal of people.
There's a big difference, right? You're on Instagram or on Twitter, and it's a public profile, and that's fine. I mean, I fully realize
your information
you can set your Twitter and Instagram
right, exactly
to
right.
private.
On Facebook, where you and I are friends on Facebook, and you could see all my kids' pictures.
And you'll keep sending me posts.
Exactly. Oh, you noticed. But I keep assuming that somebody sitting in Moscow who I don't know and have never met is not looking through my kids' pictures. I assume that only people who I'm allowed to friend and who have friended me can see my information. Come to find out,
No, I
in
agree
fact,
with
that's
you 100%
not true.
there.
That's a massive problem, and for some of us, that's something to
And I
consider.
think with Cambridge Analytica, the one piece of good news is that even though they're a bad and evil company, they're an incompetent one. What they did never worked for anybody.
Because we're hearing about
and
it.
all they were paying for was hookers.
Sorry, real quickly, except for the fact that a Russian data scientist was the one that harvested all our information and gave it to Cambridge Analytica.
And they still
with that, we're wrapping it. Tony Rahm, Christina Greer, Evan Siegfried, and Julia Roginski. Thank you to you all.